Evening News is the #1 choice. Thanks for making K2 News your #1 evening news. K2 News, on your side.
It's our year-end clearance sale.
Get our biggest deals of the year on your favorite brands.
Like Sealy Posturepedic or Simmons Beauty Rest starting at just $3.99.
Only at Mattress World Northwest.
If we can't beat the price on any comparable mattress, the mattress is free.
The Dr. Oz approved detox plan to lose 10 pounds this month. No exercise, no deprivation. Forget the detox drink. Eat all this and get results.
45 pounds.
Monday at 3 on K2. This is K2 on your side. From K2 News, this is your voice, your vote.
And good morning on this Sunday, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn. Much of today's show is about an idea that would allow teachers in Washington State to carry guns in their classrooms. State Representative Liz Pike proposed the idea on her Facebook page and got a whole lot of responses, you can well imagine. The Republican freshman lawmaker is from Camas. She's one of my guests this morning. Next to her is this guy, Bob Larimer, who has a child in the Vancouver School District. He describes himself as a conservative activist who thinks Representative Pike is onto something here. We're not limiting the conversation to just Washington State. We also have two Oregonians with us. Erin Thomas is a member of the Portland chapter of Brady Campaign Against Gun Violence, and beside her is Drew Purse, who has 8 years of teaching experience in California and Oregon. He feels very strongly that teachers should not be allowed to bring guns into the classroom. Liz, I want to start with you. I know this is all very much in the concept stage, but tell me what you're thinking here.
This all started after the horrible events of Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, and I am familiar with the FFDO program, which is the Federal Flight Deck Officer program, and it started in 2002 in response basically to 9/11, and it was an initiative that was brought forth to TSA from the pilots themselves who felt vulnerable in the cockpit. So since 2002, this successful program has been operating without any mishaps, and I think that people now feel safer on an airplane. I think the pilots feel safer, and I think what has changed is the perception is that you now know that there may be somebody armed who will fight back in a dangerous situation when people intend to do harm to passengers. And my program, I think it's really important to state that I believe in government that's closest to the people, and this initiative from the very beginning that I proposed, my Safer Schools initiative, would allow school districts to decide for themselves through their school boards, which are the elected bodies closest to the people. They would decide if this is something that would be suitable for their school districts. And right now we have a toolbox with, quite frankly, not very many tools in it to shore up safety in our schools. And currently, Washington law does not allow anybody to carry a concealed weapon or a holstered weapon unless you're a law enforcement officer. And school districts, as you know, they're facing ever-tightening budgets. And this is a lot of schools can't afford the school resource officers. And I do want to point out that the school resource officers, they cost a lot of money, and the schools are charged for those. And I think that the best scenario would be for schools to have an option. If they can't afford school resource officers, they'll have something in their toolbox that would be modeled exactly after the FFDO program.
Erin and Drew, I want to bring you into this conversation because essentially she's saying it's like the Federal Marshal program on an airplane. If folks get on there, perhaps they feel a little bit safer thinking that maybe someone has a gun on that plane. Drew, your thoughts hearing that?
Yeah, well, just coming from a classroom perspective, that argument to me is flawed in a number of ways. Number one, just thinking from a safety standpoint, having more guns anywhere to me is unsafe, more unsafe. Having teachers with guns then creates an environment within the classroom that the students are thinking about, you know, is this teacher carrying a gun? Is my teacher carrying a gun? And that creates not only a paranoid environment, but it also creates an environment where learning is not going to take place as effectively.
Bob, let me ask you about that, because you have a child in the Vancouver School District. He's saying they won't be able to learn as well, thinking that perhaps someone's carrying a gun there.
Well, I actually have 4 children who have graduated from the Vancouver School District. 1 child still in high school, and I have grandchildren coming along. I'm pretty heavily vested in this. And first of all, the beauty of concealed carry is that no one knows. No one knows who it is, where it is, which room, which teacher. And most students, like anything new that you bring into the school, they'll think about it for the first week or maybe even the first month. After that, it's business as usual. You know, we're a developed nation, a democratic nation, having to face some things about insecurity and security issues. Israel is a developed nation, a democratic nation. They have concealed carry weapons in the classroom. Parents bring the students. Students learn, the teachers teach. It's no big deal.
Aaron, I want to bring Aaron into this too, because you've been listening patiently here too. You're hearing these folks over here. What are you thinking?
Well, my primary job is I'm the mother of 2 small children, 4 and 6 years of age, and have 1 child in the Portland public school system. But my other day job is I work for an organization called the War Prevention Initiative, and we're looking a lot at the militarization of our world, and that you prevent less problems the more arsenal you have versus preventing more problems. So guns don't prevent violence. Guns end up being the solution to violence, which causes more violence. And so I think that could be taken from a global perspective right down to the classroom perspective. More guns don't prevent violence from breaking out. More guns won't prevent my children in the school if the root causes are not being taken care of. And so what I'd be most interested in seeing is somebody who has the legislative power to think through this issue, like Representative Pike, of making sure that this discussion is elevated to include the root causes. My child is at a K-8 public education institution that doesn't have a full-time school psychologist. If a teacher is having a problem that goes beyond their toolkit, at a very basic level, we're not able to teach people how to prevent problems, how to think through things in a nonviolent way. There's not even very much training in nonviolent vocabulary being used at our school. So I think there's a lot of levels to this, and I absolutely think that's what our lawmakers are going to do. I think they're going to bring all of these ideas into play, and this is just the beginning of the discussion. The 4 of us here want nothing more than safe kids. And it's just so great that society's ready to talk in a frank manner about that.
Well, you know, a lot of people have opinions on this. You can well imagine they also have a lot of questions. A Vancouver resident would like Representative Pike to answer this one here. Go ahead.
Is she going to write the bill such that everybody's going to know which teacher is armed, or is she going to write the bill such that the teachers are going to be allowed to be armed, but nobody is going to know who is or who isn't armed?
My original thoughts that I put out on Facebook in response to the incidents in Connecticut were it would be a confidential program where the principal, the administrators, and local law enforcement would have information about which teacher would be qualified. And I also want to make it very clear that teachers would have to go through the same rigorous standards that pilots do. And that's a big caveat, I think, that gets lost in this discussion. And just to speak also to your point, which is a very good point, we have to shore up our mental health programs in this country. That's going to take a long time. It's not going to change overnight. What I liked about my idea was it's an immediate solution that can start protecting our kids today, not 6 months from now or a year from now. So there's not any right answer here. And the thing that I think is really wrong with our political discourse today is my idea is wrong and your ideas are right. I think we all have good ideas, and I think it's through collaboration in these kind of forums and also in the State House. And I keep very close contact with my constituents, and I think there's lots of ways. Exchange ideas, let's come up with the best plan, and let's give all of our school districts all across this state every possible tool to make their schools safer. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
If I can just point out, I'd like to point out that, you know, for instance, your viewers of a program like this are probably a little more thoughtful bunch, but even for them, we might be venturing out into unfamiliar territory. Concealed weapons for some might have a negative connotation. The fact is, in my state, about 1 out of 20 citizens has a concealed carry permit. They're not that difficult to get. I've got one for Washington. I've got one for Oregon. And along with that, I got training from a law enforcement professional which I felt made me a lot more aware of the responsibility, gave me a mindset of responsibility, and gave me good safety training. And I believe that we can do the same thing for our teachers, for our educators.
We asked our K2 Facebook followers to weigh in on this subject, and they always do, and a lot of you responded. Let's start with this one from Dave, who says this: you don't have to do anything extra. All you have to do is lift the federal ban on guns at schools so that the teachers who so choose and are licensed to can carry their guns just like they do everywhere else. There are tens of thousands of teachers all across America who are former military, gun enthusiasts, country folks who've been around and used firearms their entire life. If you just let them have their constitutional rights back, they will take care of themselves. Aaron, I'm sure you probably have something to say about that, and then we'll get to Drew, too.
I'd love to jump in on that point. One of the things that concerns me so much about this is that I don't think that the licensing and permit process, it's not standard from state to state. I'm not a gun owner, but my father and grandfather and all my uncles are. My understanding in Oregon is that you go online. There's a fairly basic checklist that you have to go through. And I'm learning more about Representative Pike's proposal here, you know, in front of the cameras, so I can't speak to that so well. But I'm very worried about the unintended consequences. So I really want to make sure that the people who may... First of all, I'd like to say that unequivocally, I don't believe there should be guns in the school. I think that there's way too many unintended consequences that could happen, and that children and other innocents could be injured in the crossfire. I think there's a lot of stress when you're about to deploy a weapon. I understand that a certain amount of training can really help with that, and, you know, put the right person in the right place at the right time. But far more often than not, we're not seeing common standards. And as a parent, in order to see any kind of discussion like this progress, I would be much more likely to support the legislation that State Senator in Oregon, Ginny Burdick, is putting forward, of actually banning all guns from school property, you know, taking it one step further and not allowing concealed weapons at all. However, what I think is great right now is that all of this discussion raises all of our levels of information, right? And so there's processes that we need to study. There's things that we need to learn about. It probably won't change my mind on the subject, but I think the society has to go from being afraid of asking if you have a gun in your home. I mean, it should be like, my child has allergies to peanuts, let's talk about that. Gun owners are largely responsible and largely have wonderful mechanisms for keeping their arms safe. Let's just bring everything above board and start talking about it, and we can all learn. Speaking of talking about it, and Drew, I want to get you in this conversation, and this Facebook comment comes from Heidi, who sounds like she may be a teacher here. Teachers wear enough hats. We don't need to accessorize with a gun too. Your thoughts on that, Drew? Well,
I couldn't agree more. You know, there's teachers that, if teachers want to be armed, they should be armed with textbooks and computers, is my opinion, and armed with the tools to engage their students in an effective way. And if you bring in guns into the schools, be it you know, hidden or unhidden, I just feel that there is a threat there, and there is inherently a level of a lack of safety just in that whole idea. You know, and talking about finances and things, and money that's spent and things, and I've dealt with a couple of issues myself, being laid off a few times as a classroom teacher. You know, you have to think about things like insurance for the school district. Who's going to pay liability insurance for the school district? The rates will go up. Maybe nobody's going to pay. Nobody's going to be able to get coverage. Who's going to train the teachers? Whose guns? Are the teachers going to bring their own guns? Is the district going to supply guns to the teachers? These are all additional costs. Whereas right now, with a school resource officer, and as we know at Columbine, there was a school resource officer there, ineffective as he was at the time, unfortunately. But that is, to me, a solid solution, not allowing teachers in the classroom, and it does add this extra financial burden to districts. Well, Liz, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on that, because you can certainly understand the concerns on this side of the table, right?
Absolutely, and my first choice would be to have a school resource officer in every school district, in every campus, but that's probably never going to happen, just because of the fact that every municipal sheriff's office and police department, they're also short-staffed due to budget constraints. If it was just a question of money, and we had unlimited amounts, that would be my first choice. But you know, what's the first thing that happens when there's a horrible shooting in a school? Who's the first person you call? Somebody with a gun, which is an officer. When seconds count, the police officers are sometimes, unfortunately, minutes later. The other thing to think about is, going back to this, the first person we call is somebody with a gun, and the second person we call is a clergy person to do a vigil. So what I want to do is avoid these mass murders in our schools. And again, there's lots of ideas that are probably good ideas. We just need to talk about it. We need to come up with more ideas. And the other thing, too, that's really important is let's let local school districts decide if they want to choose to have a rigorous program that's designed just like the FFDO program, which is, and the reason why I go back to that is it's been fully vetted at the federal level, and it's worked marvelously to keep our passengers safe. And I can't imagine somebody not getting on an airplane because they wonder, is that pilot in the cockpit carrying today?
I'm going to hold you right there for a second. We're going to continue this discussion, folks. Lots more to talk about. It is a good one when we come back on this program this morning.
There's a school that delivers real growth. Connections Academy is a tuition-free, accredited online public school. With personalized instruction from certified teachers, a proven curriculum, and clubs and activities, we help students achieve academic and social growth. Enroll in Connections Academy now. To start, visit connectionsacademy.com or call 855-GO-CA-NOW. Connections Academy. Let's grow.
Don't get soaked on your new roof. Call Portland Roofing Company today. We're licensed and fully insured with all work backed by the best warranties. Call us for a free estimate or let us price match your lowest bid. Portland Roofing Company. Request a quote now at portlandroofingco.com.
Looking for a great deal on a new Toyota? Look no further. Gresham Toyota is under new ownership, and our selection has never been bigger or better. With over 500 vehicles to choose from, you'll find the selection, the savings, and customer service that you deserve. Now, whether it's a car, truck, van, or SUV, put Gresham Toyota at the top of your list. Just minutes from Portland. You come in and see us today.
Toyota, Scion of Gresham, the wow starts now.
Plan your summer vacation at the only lake in Oregon offering both luxury and adventurer houseboat rentals. Cove Palisades Resort on sunny Lake Billy Chinook. Relax in nature where your family is in for an unforgettable experience. Call for early bird specials on a houseboat rental today.
How many sex offenders live around your home? The online registry You and I Can See shows one thing. The one for law enforcement reveals a much more disturbing picture. I find out what's being done about this false sense of security. Monday at 6 on K2 News.
The K2 Problem Solvers expose scams and rip-offs to protect your money.
You can't pull that one over us.
And find new ways for you to save.
Do that now and you'll save $100.
The Problem Solvers, only on K2 News. Every day, K2 News is on your side, bringing you the stories that make a difference. And the team of journalists working around the clock to bring you the Northwest's best coverage. K2 News, named Best Newscast by the Oregon Association of Broadcasters. Get your traffic from Michael Convery at 1190 KEX Traffic. Only on K2 News this morning. Faster routes, easier commutes. 1190 KEX Traffic is brought to you by Town & Country Dealerships. Drive home happy. From K2 News, this is your voice, your vote.
Welcome back on this Sunday, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn. We're talking about whether teachers should be allowed to have concealed weapons in classrooms. We have just a few minutes left with you guys. Now, a student offers his suggestions for making classrooms safer. His mother, Sarah, put this on our Facebook page. Here it is. My son is 13. I asked him what he thought. He wants to know why teachers can't just have beanbag rounds, tasers, or pepper spray. It's not going to kill anyone. It would give people a minute to tackle the guy. He also said if the kid gets a hold of it, no one dies out of the mouths of babes. And that is from Sarah. Erin, what do you think of that one?
Well, I actually think that in the case of Sandy Hook, something like a taser would have probably done well. The main concern I have is that our teachers be able to focus on educating our children. We ask a lot of our teachers, and they need to be able to focus on their job. And so it really has to be about their level of comfort in bringing that into their job. I don't think it should be one of the requirements. I think Fear begets fear, violence begets violence, and education begets education.
Bob, your thoughts on that? You know, taser, something like that as opposed to a gun. Beanbag rounds, your thoughts?
Ask the president or a governor or a media personality or a rock star, anyone who has armed guards, if that would be okay with them. The fact is that to stop unlawful deadly force, you need lawful deadly force. And so before we get too deep in the weeds here, I just want to point out the fact that the only reason we're having this discussion is because, one, school shooters defeat school security and somehow find their way into a classroom or a building. That's why we know about school shooters. They've gotten in and have gained access to the children. The other thing is, whatever the gun laws are, they violate multiple gun laws. So it doesn't matter. They don't care about gun laws. So what we have is, beyond school security, beyond our laws, we have a person who makes it into the presence of little children and takes their lives. At that point, after they've defeated school security, after they've gotten past perhaps a sheriff's deputy or a school security officer, after they've gotten past locked doors, buzzers, lockdowns, and they're in the room with the children, then what? There's only one solution, and that is trained, armed, concealed carry school personnel who can stop that shooter.
Drew, he says it's the only solution here.
No, and I think one of the problems we're having here today with this discussion is that you know, we want to pass all these laws and create legislation, which is a knee-jerk reaction to some of these horrible events that have happened, albeit isolated. My view: more gun control and more money for preventative things, and you have a problem. Look, I don't have a problem with the Second Amendment. I think it's fine. I think it was created for a reason, to protect from the British, and you protect your house and things. But anyway, I do think that and I grew up in the country, and I get the hunting and things like that. But I can't believe we're having this debate. To be honest with you, it just seems like that's something.
What's next step in the process, Liz?
Well, I've been crafting legislation with other colleagues in the House, and our bill cutoff is February 14th. So if I don't have something drafted and in the hopper by then, it won't get a chance to even be considered in a committee. But I am very serious about better school safety, and what I want to do is have more options for our schools and our school boards, and let them decide with their own constituents. And for example, you know, your school board, you could weigh in with your school board and let them know that that would be unacceptable in your school, and you would prefer to have more security, more police officers. That's fine. But it's just about giving people choices. And to speak to your point about more laws, what my bill would do would be to repeal bad laws that have been put in place.
And we will be following it closely. I promise you that. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very, very much. We have much more to talk about after this.
As part of its programming schedule, KATU airs children's programming designed as educational and informational. We identify each program at the beginning by showing this symbol. Information regarding KATU's children's programming is available by inspecting our public file during regular business hours. You may contact our children's programming coordinator by calling 503-231-4222.
Give us your dented hardtops and dinged SUVs, your banged up trucks and scraped sedans. Give us your sorrow and your shame. And when you come to Mako, collision repair is up to 33% less compared to other body shops. So don't go getting bent out of shape, because we've got this. Mako's collision repair is up to 33% less compared to other body shops. Mako, America's #1 paint and body shop.
The 5-minute advantage from the K2 storm trackers and Viper radar. What difference will it make for you? It's the difference between getting stuck in weather traffic or staying 5 minutes ahead of the storm, getting caught in a rainstorm, or being inside happy and dry before it starts, being prepared before the power goes out, or stumbling around in the dark.
The only place to get the 5-minute advantage?
Viper Radar and the K2 Storm Tracker Weather Team.
K2 News is on your side with Viper Radar and the 5-minute advantage. Start your day with Portland's #1 source for news. K2 News This Morning and Good Morning America, bringing you stories from here at home and around the world. K2 and ABC, your #1 choice in the morning. Weekdays starting at 4:30 a.m. on K2.
Buying a new big screen TV for the Super Bowl is a lot to tackle. Find out which high-priced models fumble and which less expensive ones score as the problem solvers help you make the call on a big screen TV. Monday at 6:15 a.m. on K2 News This Morning. Running's a great way to get fit in the new year, but Family Matters knows getting started is hard. The Heart to Start plan starts slowly. Run for 1 minute, then walk for 2. Then work up to longer sessions, paying attention to how your body feels. Have a running buddy for motivation. Set a goal like doing a 5K in 12 weeks. In no time, running can be a heart-healthy part of your life.
Find the Heart to Start training plan on the Family Matters page at KATU.com. K2 and Providence Health and Services know that family matters. From K2 News, this is your voice, your vote.
And women alike. Everyone is committed to doing the job. They're fighting and they're dying together. And the time has come for our policies to recognize that reality.
Defense Secretary Panetta announcing last week that the Pentagon is lifting its ban on women serving in direct combat roles. As Panetta mentioned, women are already serving and dying overseas. At least 130 female troops have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, more than 800 wounded. Many of them have been drawn into battle because there are often no clear front lines. We asked an Oregon National Guard sergeant what she thinks about the change that allows women to serve in combat units. Sergeant Tracy Bramey has served in both Afghanistan and Iraq. And while she hasn't been on the front lines of battle, she's been very close as a crew chief with a medevac unit. She tells us why she welcomes the change.
I think it's important for women to have the right to defend their country as they see fit and as they choose, instead of being told, well, you can serve your country, but only in this capacity, and no other ones. And if a woman is able mentally and physically to do that job, then they should be allowed to do that job. I think it could, only because our culture has brought us up that way, where we're not always looking at each other as equals, which I think that we should. Like I said before, we both have strengths, we both have weaknesses. In a combat zone, when you're in that group of people that you've come to respect, admire, I mean, that's your family. So regardless if you're a female or a male, they're going to have your back, and that's the most important thing. We try just as hard as men do, and we represent our country, our state, as well as we can to the best of our ability, and just support us.
We'd like to hear your voice on this. What do you think about women being officially allowed on the front lines of the battle? Contact me on my Facebook page. The address right there on your screen. Go to facebook.com, Steve Dunn, K2. We may read some of your comments next week, and we're certainly glad you joined us today on this Sunday. Have a great rest of the weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night in the news, everybody.
Fisher Communications.
Hello, I'm on live TV.
How dare you! You two make good couple.
Can you believe it? We're here. Can you believe it?
Please sit down. One. All right. Dynamite. Hey, that's me.
You think I'm afraid of Justin Timberlake? No, this may shock you, but I wasn't too worried for my safety.
There's only one #1 evening news in Portland, K2 News, bringing you stories and breaking news as it happens, getting results with exclusive on-your-side investigations, saving you time and money with K2 Problem Solver reports, and keeping you ahead of the storm with Viper Radar and the 5-Minute Advantage. Portland's best choice for evening news is the #1 choice. Thanks for making K2 News your #1 evening news. K2 News, on your side. Dan Tilkin and Anna Canzano are the On Your Side investigators, only on K2 News.
In the old Chinook-Wawa language, we have a word for giving.
Polish.
It's how we teach our children. Giving, sharing, supporting our friends and neighbors. It's who we are. Just ask the people at Columbia Riverkeeper, protecting all life that depends on the Columbia River. We are the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, sharing nearly $60 million with Oregonians since 1997. The Spirit Mountain Community Fund. It's who we are.
Get your traffic from Michael Convery at 1190 KEX Traffic. Only on K2 News this morning. Faster routes, easier commutes. 1190 KEX Traffic is brought to you by Town & Country Dealerships. Drive home happy.
The following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
You heard the term, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Well, stop clicking your heels, Ray Allen. This is not Kansas.
That's right, it's Boston. Boo!
I bring up Miami every single day to them. I want them to hate them. I want them to beat them. That's got to be our focus.
The Heat and Celtics look to add another chapter to their budding rivalry. Ray Allen, once a champion, returns the enemy.
Ray crossed over to the dark side and went to them. They're the champs. Now we want to beat them.
Then it's a matchup of scoring machines. Kevin Durant has his Thunder ready for another title run.
Oh, my! Oh, my! Call that away, Jim.
While Kobe Bryant and the Lakers are looking for answers.
Another loss.
Where was the defense?
Disastrous for